Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of this 5-Door Media podcast on the topic of sales. That's right. We have got some of the top home service professionals across the country to join in conversations talking about sales, talking about how we turn opportunities into revenue, revenue into profit, profit into freedom, and freedom into impact. Let's get into today's episode. Jamie Reeder is the founder and CEO of Dustin Mop House Cleaning, a premier residential cleaning company with 3 thriving locations in North Carolina. With over 1,000 5-star reviews, Jamie's business is known for delivering exceptional service and exceeding customer expectations every single time. But Jamie's story doesn't start with dusters and cleaning solutions. She spent 10 years as a top-performing sales representative in the oil industry before launching her own business of over 15 years ago. She's not just leading a successful company, she's also pioneering a one-call close sales method and preparing to launch a sales accelerator program to help other cleaning businesses thrive. Here's a fun fact. Before Jamie started Dustin Mop, she closed a sales deal while standing on top of an oil rig. Talk about stealing the deal under pressure. Can't wait to dig into Jamie's sales strategies, her journey from oil rigs to clean rooms, and learn more about how she's helping others in the home service space, helping them succeed. So let's get started. Welcome to the show, Jamie.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. The oil rig was a joke, but
Okay.
sorry,
Hey.
maybe that didn't
It
come
was close
across very
enough.
well,
Yeah.
but that was a joke. I really was not on top of an oil rig, but
I haven't known you long, but I believe you could do it. I bet you could do it.
I might be able to. But thank you for having me here. I'm very excited to be here with you today.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. So tell me what's been going on.
Well, living the dream, Drew, living the dream. No, I love my job. I love what I do. I love my business. I'm Dustin Mop, and I love talking about business. So I was really excited when you asked me to come on the podcast and talk about sales, because sales is something that is near and dear to my heart, and one of the areas that I've always been involved in with my business over the 15 years.
Love that. Very cool. So yeah, today's conversation is about sales because it is obviously an extremely important part to any business, but especially in those home service industries. I've been asking every guest this. Can you remember the first thing you ever sold?
The first thing I ever sold.
And we could go like way back if we need to.
Yes, I can go way back. First thing I ever sold that I regretted selling it was a Stevie Nicks album.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
How'd you sell that? Tell that story.
Oh, I had my sister's friend had older sisters, and she really wanted a Stevie Nicks album. So I sold it to her because I really wanted to, I probably wanted to buy like candy or something. It was like one of those impulse sales. So
major regrets
on selling Stevie Nicks, yes, album.
Well, let's talk about a sale that you don't regret. What is the sale that you're most proud of?
Oh gosh. Oh, interesting. I would say probably one of my most favorite times that I sold is I really loved when I was in the oil industry. Those are some of my favorite sales because I was in a very niche industry. And I sold industrial lubricants. So I would go into industrial facilities and sell things like hydraulic oils, gear oils, greases. But it was very much a preventative maintenance type sale where, they talk about their downtime sometimes in manufacturing facilities in seconds. So the amount of revenue that's lost, right? So I would say one of my favorite sales that I remember is someone had called because they needed some help with some some cutting fluid that they were using, but they were actually using it to cut in a different scenario, cutting moissanite diamonds. And so they couldn't get the diamonds cut right. So I went to the facility and toured it. It was a tiny little place. And I said, I think that I know that we can help you, but I've got to bring the experts in. So I brought in my cutting fluid experts, and we ended up recommending a product to them. And they were able to cut the diamonds better. And as a gift, the customer actually gave me a diamond necklace.
Oh, wow.
Everybody that was involved in it. So that was one of my most fun kind of sales. I love problem solving. So I really like trying to get to the root cause. And I'm not always the smartest person in the room, but I'm very resourceful and I can certainly, pull those people in when needed. So that's probably one of my favorite sales stories.
For sure. Like talk about like a high pressure situation. I'm guessing cutting diamonds incorrectly is a very costly error. So like
Right.
that was definitely a high pressure
Yeah, for
situation.
sure.
Yeah. And you got a sweet necklace out of it. Very cool.
Yeah, and I still have
So
it. Yes.
I love it. Very cool. I hope you always have it. That'd be a good,
Yeah.
memory. Yeah. So tell me, I don't think you could have picked different industries to spend more time in your career, right?
Right.
From like manufacturing like lubricant oil sales to owning a cleaning company.
Mm.
How did that happen? Tell me the story of like how you all started this and started where you are and got to where you are today.
Sure, sure. Yeah, it's a leap, but it's not. I mean, it is from the different types of industries. But when I was in outside sales for 10 years, and a lot of times it's like running your own business, right? You have a list of
Mm,
prospects. You're trying to get them to come on board. You're developing relationships with them. It's a little bit of a longer cycle, but when I went to North Carolina State University, I went to the College of Management there, which is their business school. And so I got a business degree. Both of my parents owned businesses growing up at one point or another. My father always did. And my mom owned her own restaurant when I was younger. And then she
oh wow,
ended up
nice.
being a police officer. And my dad started off working at Carrier, and then in the mid 80s, he launched his own business and had his own business. So, in a way, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I always knew that I would own my own business. But if you told me it was going to be in house cleaning, I would have said you were crazy,
Mm,
because it's just not something that I ever thought that I would do. So, there's a longer story, but the shorter story is I was in outside sales. I had a neighbor who was a cleaning lady,
mm.
and she didn't have a real business and had a handful of clients. She had maybe about 20 clients, and unfortunately, her husband had passed away. I asked her she was moving back up to New Jersey, and I said, "Well, what are you going to do with your clients?" And she said, "Nothing." And I said, "Well, why don't you let me buy them from you?" And so I bought them from her, and hired on two of her people that work for her. And then I set up my own LLC,
Oh wow.
transition. So that's how I started. And I worked for, my mom had just moved down to North Carolina. And so she helped me and worked in the business. And I still had my full time job. So I had my full time job, a 2 year old, and
Oh
started
man.
started my residential house cleaning business. So that's how I got started, and I knew nothing. I knew nothing.
And what year was that?
That was in 2009.
Okay.
So I started off
Very
with one
cool.
employee, and um, now today, I think I have about 65 employees. I don't know what the exact number is today, but somewhere
Sure.
around 65 employees between our three locations.
Wow, it's impressive. Very cool. Thanks for telling that story. So, on the conversation of sales,
Hmm.
there are, and marketing can be a similar comparison to this. There's different philosophies, right? There's different ways of looking at sales. There's different ways of looking at marketing. Financials is more of a black and white thing to look at, right?
Yeah.
Numbers don't lie. But that sales and marketing, it always gets interesting. People have different philosophies for it. What would you say is your philosophy in the world of sales? How do you look at it? How do you look at measuring it? What's your philosophy on it?
Sure, great question. Different sales approaches, I have different philosophies. In-person sales is much different than a one call close over the phone. And
Mm,
so it took a little bit for me to get adjusted to that. And some people are really, really great connecting in person, but not over the phone, right?
mm,
And vice versa. And so for me, I am more with Dustin Mop and house cleaning in B2C, because and I say this a lot, which is that we we are a people company, right? Between our customers and our employees, we just happen to clean houses.
mm,
And it's what we do is very, very different than any other home service. And I say that because who else is in your home every week, every 2 weeks, in your bedroom, in your bathroom, right? That's, the
Mm-hmm.
landscapers aren't there, the window guy maybe comes once a year or the window lady comes once a year, so having someone in your intimate space and allowing somebody to come to your home when you're not home, right? Or maybe you're home but you're working and not following you have to have a huge level of trust.
Mm.
And so for me, my philosophy with B2C in house cleaning specifically is that it does need a different approach, and it does need more of what I call an old school sales approach. We try to get all of our leads on the phone because we want to talk to them, and we want them to hear us and connect with us over the phone, and that's really hard to do. It's not that we don't text customers because we or leads,
Sure.
because we do, but we really do want to try to get them on the phone if we can.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, talk to me too about the one call close, right? And
right.
that's your philosophy, right? That's what you're branding and talking about the importance of that. How did that start? What have you learned, and how can other people close on one call?
Right. Well, I think number one is it started because I realized that we would get customers on the phone, and when I first started my business, it was like, we'll get them to sign up for a one-time cleaning, and then you call them back after and then sign them up for recurring, right? So this was
Mm.
back when I started, and it was part of a philosophy of a method that I used to start my business. But with all of my sales training, I'm like, wait, why aren't we just closing the recurring on the first call? Because we're having to sell it all over again. And
Yeah.
and people, consumers, sometimes we're lazy. I'm lazy as a consumer. I want to set it and forget it. I've taken all this time to call you on the phone to set up this one-time cleaning. Why not try to hook me in and get me booked for my recurring
Yeah.
biweekly service, right? So that's where that came about. So very shortly into Dustin Mop, we're like, okay, you got to close in one call. This is like when you go to the car lot, right? They never want you to leave, right? They don't want you to leave because then you start thinking about things, and then when you decide to buy, you're like, I'll just go to the
Yeah.
Honda dealership closer to my house or wherever.
You're going to drive by another dealership on the way home and see something shiny there you like too. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And again, as consumers, I'm a consumer too. I get lazy sometimes and I'm like, I just want to do the easiest thing. And I know I said I was going to do that, but I'm just going to do this because I'm here. And so getting them on the phone, but also being able to connect with them on the phone is really, really important. And understanding that, we don't want them to call us just for a price, right? We want them to understand why we are the best. And we talk about our
Mm.
Google reviews and building those trust factors with the lead over the phone, and getting them to understand, because we have basically three segments in the house cleaning industry, right? We have the cleaning lady who's typically not licensed, gets paid underneath the table,
Mm-hmm.
not doing background checks if he or she has helpers. And then, we've got the independents, which is what Dustin Mop is, and then the franchises, right? So we're not going to be price compatible against a cleaning lady, right? Or cleaning man, or whatever you want to call them, trunk slammers. There's all different kinds of
Yeah.
names for them.
I've learned all the derogatory
Yeah,
terms.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is that I'm I tell everyone it's all about educating yourself on what you're comfortable with or not comfortable with in your home. And if someone wants to hire an independent person to come clean their home, that's fine. But make sure that you have, the proper insurance for them, and that they're carrying the proper insurance. Are they bringing people into your home? Have they done background checks? Do you know what the
Mm-hmm.
liability is if they fall down the stairs and break their neck? So, or break a leg or something like that. So it's really about educating. And sometimes when the consumer understands that, they understand it's not worth trying to save, you know,
Sure.
$20 a cleaning or $30 a cleaning, to have something less expensive, because we aren't the cheapest and least expensive house cleaning service, but we provide consistency in scheduling. We try to, as long as we don't guarantee the same cleaner, but we do try to keep them on the same schedule. So in that sales call, it's really about trying to connect with them in that one call close. And then for us, we also monitor our sales calls. So that's really, really important. Anyone that has a sales team should be monitoring their sales calls.
Preach.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
how in the world could you, especially, I mean, how in the world could anyone know what's going on in their sales team if they're not monitoring those sales calls?
Yeah.
And so that's something that I've really, as a business owner, we're all so busy, especially in the house cleaning industry. I'm to the point where in my path with my business that I have a lot of admin support from my team. I don't do any of my day to day. I'm working on bigger picture, bigger projects. Um, but there was a time when I didn't have that extra time to work on other projects, and I was doing a lot of different things in my business. And there's certainly is a gap in sales with house cleaning and training your sales reps properly and getting the sales calls evaluated with the right type of framework. Are they overcoming objections? Do they know what the client's pain point is so they can use, and do they know how to take that pain point and use it to close the sale?
Mm.
Right? And really highlighting all of the reasons and trying to use those reasons why to overcome their objections, right? And to book it,
Mm-hmm.
and just understanding some pretty core principles around sales and specifically for house cleaning because it is so personal.
Absolutely, yeah, and I love what you were saying about and the other conversations we've had this season, and listening to calls, listening to recorded calls. Almost everybody has said like that is such a game changer, and I love people that actually took it even farther. Like, have your own people listen to their calls and grade themselves.
Yep.
Like that's where like some real good can come from. Because I mean, it's so true. I mean, the best athletes in the world, they spend hours of their week watching their film of their game, right? Like, how did I, or even more so, like watching their opponent's film and learning what their opponents are going to be doing. So, like, why would we not take a lesson from some of the most successful athletes in the world, what they do, and implement it into our business?
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can't get better. And I tell my team, a lot of the times we only get better by failure, right? By trying things and learning new things. And sometimes you fail, and that's okay. But you continually push yourself to get
Mm-hmm.
better. And that's part of what we do weekly at Dustin Mop is we have someone that leads our sales team, leads the sales calls with them. They actually listen to calls every week. When we do have a grading framework, did they hit all of these points? Did they follow our script? And we do. And again, that's another thing. I have peers where they're like, I don't really have a set script. And for me, um, having a set script and making my team they have to practice it so it sounds natural, right? They
Yeah.
have to continually practice it. But it is important to say certain things because when things don't get said on the initial call, because we've tried to let them do their own kind of thing in the past, this was years ago, then customers don't have the expectation of exactly what the cleaning is.
Mm.
And so I'm pretty diligent about them following a sales script because when they deviate it and they say different things, then I don't know what's wrong with my numbers if something is off.
Mm.
But that's just my philosophy. But there's other people that are very successful that don't have a sales script. But um, a lot of times when we have people come into the sales team, maybe they've done sales in other industries, or maybe they're a VA and they've done sales, but it's not a house cleaning sale. And maybe they have some sales experience, but they really don't know anything about house cleaning. And so
Sure.
for me, even if you're going to let them go off script, I still do believe that there is some validity to making them follow a sales script while they're training and until they're fully trained and confident in converting sales.
Yeah. Scripts are an interesting, topic in the world of sales because I don't even know if I could follow a script, but I'm just too stubborn for it. But like, I think using a script like maybe it's like bullet points or specific, people objections and like, well, say this if they object to this, say
Yeah.
this. It's more of a guideline, not a like you're in a play and you have to say things word for word. I think is like it's finding. I think both can exist. I
Sure.
think you can have freedom of conversation as well as like structure through like the guideline of a sales script.
Yep. Yep. And I think
Because it's hard to scale too. Scale a sales team. If everybody's just off doing their own thing and there's nothing similar, then it's impossible to train new people that are coming in too.
right, right. And if someone's not, you're absolutely right. And my philosophy is if someone's not following my sales script and they're not converting sales, I don't know if it's because they're not following the sales script or they're
Yeah,
just not good at sales. And
yeah,
it's hard sometimes to decipher that. But I do feel like now with our grading a bit more to be able to give them a grade and hit all of those points that we certainly are able to develop our sales team much better that way. And
sure.
again, I'm not opposed to allowing them to go off script if they have a proven track record and they are a seasoned salesperson, and then I would probably be okay with it.
Yeah, yeah. If they're closing sales and people are still happy on the other end of the phone call, do whatever you want. Just
Exactly.
just keep closing those sales. Well, you talk about like the one call close method. Closing is one of the hardest things for salespeople to really grasp
Mm,
their head around, because maybe they're having a great conversation, they're enjoying the conversation, they're answering everything smooth, but yet still sometimes like really Gary Vaynerchuk calls it like going in for the right hook. Like it's you got those jabs. It's a boxing metaphor, but like that right hook can still be hard, even if the shot is set up perfectly.
mhm.
What are some things you think maybe home service business owners are missing when it comes to like really going for that close, or maybe why they're nervous to go for the close?
Mhm. Yeah, I think a lot of people fear rejection just in general. I think most people that's a natural fear, and so I think part of it is in training, right? Of really training the sales reps that hey, yeah, you're gonna get rejected. People are gonna say no, but a lot of people are gonna say yes. So how many yeses are you missing because you haven't,
Mm,
taken that step? And being silent, right? So people don't like silence and they fill that space and understanding how pauses can have such a dramatic effect on a customer of saying, when a customer gives you an objection and you say, you know, I understand what you're saying, but I've got some availability and this is our cancellation. You've already spent 20 minutes with me on the phone. Why don't we go ahead and get you booked? And if you don't, if you end up wanting to, talk to, maybe they say, oh, I want to talk to my spouse or partner or
yeah,
whatever, you get that a lot. But it's kind of giving them that urgency, right? But then presenting that and then just being quiet, right? Because a lot of sales have you ever been on a call with a sales rep where they literally have talked you out of buying from them? Like I have been. I've been on sales
100%.
before where I'm like, okay, I'm going to get this, and then they keep talking and talking, and I'm like, oh, maybe I don't want this, right?
Yeah, I want the product. I just don't want anything to do with them.
Right, right.
Yeah,
And it's or they just didn't stop and listen. So stopping and pausing and listening and let the customer while still maintaining control of the call, of course. But having, and this is another thing with our sales script, we have a very specific point in time where we say to the lead, is this what you're looking for? And I tell my sales team, do not deviate from that. That is an affirmation where if they say yes, there's like this connection with them that they are telling themselves, yes, they need this, right?
mm,
So it's it's just having them and educating the sales team and understanding why you say certain things, why you take certain pauses, and not letting their fear of being rejected of a customer saying no get in the way of them making a sale.
yeah. Love it. So you've obviously the way you're talking, the stories you're telling, you've hired quite a bit of salespeople in your life.
Yeah.
And interviewing for a sales position is very different than interviewing for a technician position or even like office admin. It is a unique breed of people that we're looking for, right?
Yep.
What are some things that you found in that interview process that you could tell is the making or of a great salesperson compared to just maybe a good salesperson? Like, what are some things you're looking for?
For me, I mean, we do for our sales, we do give them our sales script to practice, and we actually do have them go through a mock phone call in the interview process, which can be
Oh,
very
wow.
nerve
Yeah.
wracking, but it gives you an idea of their customer service, you know, whether they get flustered and frustrated. And it's not that, and we just tell them you can make up and say whatever you want to say, right? The
Mm,
accuracy of what you tell us is an important, you know, of it doesn't matter
yeah.
that you don't know how much our cleaning is, just make up a number, right? Or why you're asking the questions you're asking. But we kind of give them a script, and that's really helpful and but important because most people that are in sales that love sales are not going to be afraid to do that, right?
Mm,
Not that they wouldn't be nervous, but it's if they're a successful salesperson. Now, if you have somebody that's never truly sold before, maybe you've hired somebody that you feel like is like, you know, we have VAs and that do some of our sales. But sometimes they've been in like call centers where they don't have
mm,
as much of, and again, house cleaning service sales, I'm not saying that it's different because we know that there's a sales process and there's kind of these core frameworks for closing a sale. But there are some things like I had mentioned before about just being in someone's personal space like that.
yeah.
Um, but you know, for our VAs, we do when we hire VAs. I have one head VA that actually interviews everyone beforehand. Well, goes through their resume and decides who we're going to move forward with. And some of that is work history. Of course, that's really important, and those are kind of basic things with hiring. But when we get down to sales, it's how personable are they? Um,
Mm,
I always, when they, if they send over recordings, now this is specifically for VAs, but if they send over recordings before we've even invited them to an interview, I shut my screen off. So all I can do is hear them like a customer would hear them on the
yeah.
phone. So a lot is lost when you can see someone and you can see their lips moving. When you shut off that and you don't look at it and just listen, you know, how are they pronouncing your company name? How are they, you know, are they talking too fast? Are they going too slow? So all of those things are really really important. And I think there's other things that you can use, like, you know, we've done disc assessments for people in our office, and you know, high eyes, they like to talk a lot. Those are so there's
Mm,
some personality
sure.
assessments that you can do, like DISC and Colby, but we don't necessarily hire off of those. But you know, if I have somebody on a DISC profile that's like C and an S, they might not be all that great with sales. Where maybe if they're a high I and they like to talk a lot, right, they're going to be
Yeah.
great with sales. But yeah, finding good sales reps is really hard, and unfortunately, sometimes you don't know until you throw them in the mix.
Yeah.
But I will say, in house cleaning, and was a mistake I made, is you will stunt your growth if you keep a sales rep in a position for too long. I had
Mm,
a woman that worked for me, and this was years ago, and I wasn't in a growth pattern then, but I mean, she just wasn't a good sales rep, but she was an amazing person, but she just wasn't a good sales rep. And I kept her in that position way too long. Now, if we hire somebody and you know, they go through sales training and they're not, you know, closing deals in the first 2 weeks, that's a pretty big red flag because we get a lot of leads in. So if they're
yeah.
not able to close leads in the first 2 weeks, that's it. And we will not keep them beyond 30 days.
Mm,
I
gotcha.
think that's a mistake um, a lot of owners make. is keeping people on too long in sales. They're like,
Sure.
well, they've only been here for 30 days. I think they need like 60 or 90. No, not when you're in sales.
Yeah.
I mean, not when you, I had this awesome sales rep. She doesn't work for me anymore, but the first day she got on the phone by herself, she closed 2 deals all by herself.
Love it.
That's sales rep. They know either they get it or they don't, right?
Yeah. The girls that get it. The
Yeah.
girls that don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, let's talk about that. So you found that great person in the interview. What does sales training look like for you? I mean,
Yeah.
how long is it? How long until they're actually answering phone calls or taking those leads? What's that look like in your world?
Well, we like to get them on the phone to start like actually leading the phone call with probably about day 5, 6.
Okay.
So the first probably 5-ish days, and it depends because we've trained and they've been on day 2 or 3, and they're like, "Can I get on the phone now? Like I'm ready. Like
Mm.
I want to get on
Let's
the phone,
go.
right?"
Yeah.
So if we have
Yeah.
somebody that's really really eager to get on the phone and we feel like they've really mastered our script.
Mm-hmm.
We'll let them get on the phone. So it's also very dependent, but so they come on board, they'll do like a first day onboarding with tech stuff and meeting the team and understanding our cleaning process. So they'll watch our cleaning videos so they get an idea
Yeah.
of what it's like for the cleaning pros inside of the home. And so the first couple days is really just a lot of what's going on at Dustin Mop, and here's Dustin Mop, and also here's our sales script. Start memorizing it and start working with it. And then we use Ring Central, so we can, of course, they can listen to calls, and so
Mm.
they'll listen to calls for multiple days and do a lot of practicing. We have trainual, so they'll go through a trainual program. Um, and then once they start taking calls, then whoever's training them will be on the call with them. And they can jump in and merge into the call if they need to, interrupt the call if something needs to be said, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then they go into monitoring phase, right? Where when we do release them on their own, then they have once a week, they're going to have the sales meeting, evaluating their phone calls using our framework and giving them additional training material if they need it. And that's part of what I had mentioned that I'm building out is building out a sales accelerator program to have not just initial training for sales, but ongoing training for sales, and also doing sales call evaluation so the manager gets it, and then also the sales reps gets it, and then they know based on their grading and our framework, it will tell them, you're really need to focus and go redo this area of the training because it's lacking,
Mm.
and maybe it's using a pain point to close the sale.
Sure. No, it's really strategic and it's intentional,
Yeah.
which is good. Yeah. Okay, something on this podcast that I'm hoping we can provide with every episode. And I feel like podcasts do a really good job of big overarching
Mhm.
conversations and like big thoughts, big ideas. And I think sometimes the listener, um, you know, they can hear that and get really excited, but then they get overwhelmed by these really big ideas.
Yeah.
So something I've been asking for every guest is, what is something that the home service business owner that's listening to this show right now can do immediately after this is done? It is a pivot, a small change. I'm a big believer in micro changes equal macro differences. Something they can do in like 10 minutes that could help move that needle for them in their sales
Mm.
process. What is like one little thing they could possibly do after this?
Ooh, that's so owner dependent. But what is one thing that they could really do is um, make sure this is the number one thing is make sure that you are contacting your leads as
Mm.
soon as possible, as soon as possible. Um, and you know that is so critical. I can't tell you how many people call our business and say, oh, you're the only cleaning company that reached back out to us, and we contacted 4 or 5 cleaning companies, like
Jeez.
on the on the regular, and
Yeah.
we still get it. We still get it. So, I mean, when you're smaller, it depends on, there's so many different variations of business owners and house cleaning. And when you're smaller, if you're in the field cleaning, still, and you're trying to build up your business. And I never cleaned in the field, but some people do start that way. And so for them, it's a little bit harder to be timely, but you can still set up automations.
Mm-hmm.
As a customer, I just want to know, as a lead for me, I want to know that someone's got it, right? So if I fill out a form or I call, I just want to know that somebody's got it. Now, if I was in the field cleaning and I was starting my house cleaning company, I would have a live answering service. I would pay the money for a live answering service because so many customers will call and get a recording and hang up, right?
Mm.
And so make sure that you're touching them as soon as you can. I would say that's probably the big number one thing. Now, if you're larger and you're getting a decent amount of leads in and you've got one or two sales reps, let's say, um, in that case, I would say, are you monitoring your sales team, right?
Yeah.
Are you monitoring and really giving them feedback and evaluating them? And how many sales are you missing because you aren't?
Speed to lead is huge. Do you have a certain benchmark internally for your world that you're like, if we're not reaching out within this amount of time from that lead coming in, we're screwing something up? Do you have like a benchmark?
Yeah, if it is during the business day, it is like immediate. It's like you are calling that lead as soon as it comes in. We don't care about all the follow-up tickets that are coming in to follow up with them after they got their quote, or
Mm-hmm.
it's, if the lead, those are the hottest leads. That is immediate. Everything else gets dropped when those leads come in. Period.
I was at a conference last week, and one of the breakout sessions, someone tested the idea of speed to lead, and it was a conference that's pretty heavy in like the exterior cleaning and
Mhm.
pressure washing industry. So the person who was leading the breakout called the top 3 pressure washing near me companies that popped up on Google. We were in Orlando, Florida, so it was a very popular area, and called them live.
Oh, wow. Okay.
2 of them didn't answer. And then the third one had some AI phone response and could not understand anything he was saying. And we're talking like those are the top 3 on Google that showed up for that search that day. 0 for 3 on all of them.
I'm I'm not surprised by that. I'm really not. I mean, it's like I feel like home services is evolving, but at the same point in time, there's so much out there, and like, for example, AI is a great example. I love AI, and I think it's great, but I don't think the speech AI for sales is great. I haven't heard one yet that's
Yeah.
amazing. And
It's not perfect yet. Yeah.
yeah, and it just, you can tell, right? And then it turns
Yeah.
you off, right? Because then you're like, oh, they're just being lazy.
It's where you just start yelling representative,
Yeah,
representative, representative into the phone, trying to get a person as quickly as
exactly,
possible. Yeah.
exactly. And even, having, as long, my feeling is you can't over communicate with a lead or a customer too much about what's going on, right? So if a customer sends us a lead in, um, you know, over the weekend, and well, we're building out a whole new system for our leads, but if it's in our off hours, they're automatically going to get a message. We're going to gather some more information, but at some point in time, it's going to say, hey, just FYI, this is after hours, but we've got you. You're at the top of our list. It's just about
Yeah.
communicating and letting them
Yeah.
understand that they're important, right? And when you get lost in dead space, or you think that you did, even if you didn't, you're kind of done, right?
Yeah.
So
You're so right too. And I think sometimes we don't talk enough about or pay attention enough the headspace these people have to be in when they call you. I mean, you talked a lot about at the beginning of this, like residential house cleaning is one of the most personal services outside of maybe something medical that exists for consumers, right? Like they are potentially in your home, in your bedroom. They're cleaning your toilets, people. Like maybe twice a month they're
right.
doing this. It's one of the most personal things. And I think we forget when they reach out, the mental space they have to be in
Mm,
to get to that point where like I need help with something very close and dear to me and personal to me, so much so that I'm willing to pay somebody at this point.
yes.
And I think we don't pay attention enough. Like that's the headspace they're in when they give you a call,
Hmm.
right? So I think you're so spot on with the conversation of just it's impossible to over communicate with them. It's impossible to like do too much to make them feel like, hey, we got you.
Right.
I know this is a moment for you. I know this is like you're maybe full of shame. You're embarrassed about things. Like, I need help cleaning my own home. We've got you. We'll take it care of. And sometimes that first 30 seconds of that conversation, you've got them.
Yep.
You know, but if you make them feel safe when they're calling you, could make such a big difference. So I'm right on with you. Fully believe it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was going to say one other thing is the, following up with them is important too, because I don't know about you, but I am so, and I guess we are all busy, right?
Sure.
Everybody's busy in our own lives. But for me, I mean, sometimes I click on ads sometimes on Facebook or Instagram on purpose because I know they'll remarket to me. I'm like, oh, I
Mm-hmm.
like that, but I don't have time for that right now,
I
right?
love that. Yeah.
And following up with customers is important too, because there's customers that are like, it's top of mind in that second, but they don't have time to pick up the phone and call us, but they filled the form out, right?
Yeah.
And they want the quote, but you just got to remind them. And then you got to kind of give them a nudge and say, hey, we sent you that quote yesterday. Um, where are you at? Because we're all busy, right? And so we want to be reminded, even though most right, most customers be like, no, I don't want those notifications. They would probably opt out of all of them if you could, but in
Yeah.
reality, they really want the convenience of going like, oh, I need to hire a house cleaner. I need to get the lawn service going, or I need to get the window person here, right?
Yep. You're so true. And that conference I was at last week that I was talking about during my presentation. So, sales is our fifth door in our 5-door philosophy. We believe that customers have to go through 5 doors before they become a paying customer. That fifth door is sales. Like, that's the final frontier. So, we were talking about that, and somebody asked, like, how many times do I follow up? Like, is there a science to follow up? And I'm like, honestly, I've been on both ends of this, but to me, you follow up until they tell you to stop following up.
Exactly.
Because I have been the salesperson where I'm on my 12th follow-up email, I'm on my 14th follow-up text or phone call, and they'll say like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much for staying with me. Yeah, I'm ready to go. Let's do the
Yes.
service." And like I'm talking like 12 or 14 touch points. And I've also been on the other end. I've been that like, "Hey, thanks for not giving up on me. I've been hella busy lately. I've had, this going here, this going here.
Yes.
I have not had time to think of it. Thanks for that text. I'm going to look at the proposal tonight." So I've been on both ends of that
Mhm.
where I think we get so scared of becoming that stereotypical salesperson that drives people nuts. But if there is any sort of glimmer of hope that they still might be interested and they just are busy and they have not got to talk to you, and frankly, like nothing personal, but like you just weren't a priority to them when the moments you've called, which is completely fine, right? It's okay, but because keep calling, keep following up until they tell you not to or show up with a restraining order. Like that's my mindset on it.
Oh, I 1000% agree with you. And I tell my sales team they were starting to close customers out in our CRM, and I was like, "Whoa!" They're like, "Well, they told us they weren't interested," and I was like, "That doesn't mean you close them to get
Yeah,
marketing. Like, no, they should always, you don't close unless they say
yeah,
stop."
mm-hmm,
Right? Stop. I said that's
yeah,
the only time, because you know what? It's we all have seasons of life too, right? Things happen, and that's
100%.
why it's so important as you grow, and even when you're smaller, and starting to grow, is that you've got those in some kind of CRM where you can do some kind of evergreen marketing with them, just so it's a set it and forget it, and because it might be 6 months down the road or a year down the road, and then they're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you know what? I do get occasional emails from Dustin Mop, and it's springtime,
Yeah.
and I want to get my house cleaned. And
Yeah, that you become top of mind.
exactly,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah, love it. All right, so something we've been doing on this podcast too, we've been having a little fun with a good game of like, would you rather at the end
Okay.
of the podcast, but would you rather sales edition. So I've got one question for you today.
Okay.
Would you rather only be able to sell to people who told you they don't trust you, or only sell to people who trust you but always ask for a discount? This is a tough one. Some of these have been easier than others,
I
I'll
would
say.
rather sell to people that say that they don't trust me, because I feel like I could build that trust, and I don't really want people that always want discounts.
I tell you what, I'm right there with you. And this goes back to just my entrepreneurial brain. I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to prove them that they
Mhm.
can trust me.
Yep.
Oh, you don't think you can trust me? I'll make sure you trust me. Love it. Great answer. Hey, well, thank you for being here on the show today. I really appreciate all the insight that you brought. Hopefully, everybody who's been watching or listening at home really found some gold nuggets that they can take away within 10 minutes and make a difference in your business, your home service business, to help move that sales needle. Jamie, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for everything that you taught us today. How can people learn more about you?
They can learn more about me going to dustinmop.com. I'm also on social media. I'm on Instagram and on Facebook. Jamie Reeder,
Love that.
Reader.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching this episode. We have a few more episodes in this season of the 5 Door Media podcast on sales. Pretty soon, we'll be starting a new season with a whole new topic, with a whole new list of home service professionals across the country, bringing you all their value that they can bring. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.